I'm going to be spending the next 15 to 20 minutes talking about what's available right now in terms of trials that you might be interested in participating in around the Southern California area. These are the trials that I'm going to be kind of breezing through. And most of these are in phase 2 and phase 3, so that they're kind of more advanced along in the clinical trial process. So these are also the drugs that you may be seeing coming out in the next several years if you're not going to be participating in the trials themselves. So the first one, and these all have crazy names, APL 130277. They obviously come up with a nice snazzy name afterwards. That's the official drug name for now. It's called APL 130277. And this is a sublingual film of a drug called apomorphine. Apomorphine is actually a very old drug that they're now repurposing for Parkinson's disease. Now available in a pen form, but now hopefully available in a sublingual thin film. And it's for the use of off states. So when your levodopa is not working, especially in the morning or suddenly in the afternoon, this is a thin film that you just kind of pop in your mouth, kind of like a Listerine strip, that will hopefully kind of help turn you on. And so the phase 2 has already been completed, and they're now doing phase 3, and they're kind of finishing up phase 3 and actually moving into phase 4 trials. And so it's been approved for what's called fast track designation, so hopefully something that'll move through FDA approval a bit quicker than usual. And they're planning to submit it hopefully in the end of this year, so coming up rather soon. This is the next one, also on the fast track for FDA approval. It's called CVT-301. It's actually an inhaled form of levodopa. So the purpose of this form is actually to kind of hopefully get it into your system a lot sooner than what's available on the market. Everything now is either a pill that you have to swallow and wait for your stomach to kind of open it up and absorb it, or in a pen form that you have to inject. So this one is a very interesting one where they actually just get it through your lungs, because your lungs have a lot of surface area and it's a very thin barrier between where the drug is and then where the actual blood goes, so that it can absorb very quickly. And so you can see a lot of patients, this is the phase 3 trial, improved by 7 points, so that's quite a bit, and after only 10 minutes. And so this is something that's currently undergoing FDA approval. So hopefully maybe next year you'll be able to see it out in the market. These are some of the other trials that are kind of going through what's the drug company called APDA. And the next one I'm going to talk about, it's Toza. Is that how you say it? It's called SYN115. This is a trial that is for an adenosine A2A receptor. It's similar to like caffeine, for example, that was shown to improve function in animal models. So they decided to test it in humans. And so this kind of helps reduce fluctuations, so the on and the off that you may feel over the day from the medications. And this was shown to reduce that off time that people feel. And so right now they're recruiting for phase 3 trials and a trial called Toza PD. And it's in 2 groups, so one group gets the placebo, as Dr. Diaz discussed before, and one group gets the actual medication, and they hopefully afterwards, these people who are enrolled in the trial can actually move on and everybody will get the medication. So it's kind of like a situation where eventually, even if you get the placebo, you may be able to experience the actual medication. And so these results won't be out until maybe next year. This is another interesting one that I kind of pulled up off of clinicaltrials.gov. It's called JZP-110, and it's actually not for the motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease, but it's actually for daytime sleepiness. So this is a common problem that we see. People fall asleep during the day, even though they're sleeping at night. Have a hard time staying awake during the day. They nap a lot during the day. And so this is a medication that was actually kind of used and kind of purposed for people with sleep apnea and also with narcolepsy. So another population that has the same problems that you may have as well. It works a little bit differently than what's on the market for sleepiness, things like Ritalin, Strattera, Nuvigil, Provigil, things like that. And so it was shown to be very successful in the narcolepsy and the sleep apnea patients. So now they're trying to use it for people with Parkinson's disease. So that's now in a phase 2 trial for people with Parkinson's disease, and they're recruiting around Southern California, in Los Angeles and also in San Diego. Glutathione. Glutathione is something that's been kind of used for a lot of different disease processes. It's used for aging, for memory, for skin, for exercising. It's an antioxidant. It's present in everybody's body. And we are seeing that as we age, anybody that ages with or without Parkinson's disease, that the level of glutathione in your system decreases, and is specifically in people with Parkinson's disease. So, obviously, the next step would be trying to boost those glutathione levels in your system to see if you can help slow down your Parkinson's disease or help improve the symptoms. So the problem with that is that glutathione is not very readily absorbable in the system. You eat it as a pill, you take it as a supplement, it doesn't absorb into your gut in the same way. It kind of looks in your system, in your blood, just normal protein. So they've tried to inhale it, they've tried to inject it. And so now a new company has figured out a way to kind of create a pill, a chemical that actually boosts the level of glutathione in your system, but is not the actual glutathione supplement. And so it's under phase 2A trial. So they're testing the safety and also the dose for this medication. It's called EPI 289. And they're testing it in San Francisco and also in our center. So the previous trials were one for an IV form, here we go, IV form, and that one didn't really show good results. There were very positive, very definitive positive results. And the other form was for an intranasal form that was a very, very small group of patients. So they're trying this new way of kind of boosting glutathione levels. I wanted to talk a little bit about alpha-synuclein. So hopefully people in the room, who knows what alpha-synuclein is? I see a bunch of hands, a few hands. So alpha-synuclein is an abnormal protein that we know that accumulates in Parkinson's disease. We don't know if it's the cause of the Parkinson's disease or it's just kind of like something that kind of shows up on the side as our Parkinson's disease progresses. And so an interesting approach to kind of treating Parkinson's disease is to try to see if we can get rid of this protein in our body. And so this is an antibody, actually, that kind of goes into our system and tries to remove this trash that we're accumulating in our system. And so they've tested it on mice, and it's an antibody that goes into your system and kind of just, as I said, clears out this abnormal antibody, and hopefully will kind of slow down the Parkinson's disease. So you can see, maybe it's easier on the screen. You can see this, the green line is a group that got like a fake injection, and then the group that got the actual antibody shows that the level of alpha-synuclein in your system goes down over time. So 2 companies have come out with an antibody to alpha-synuclein. This is one company, Biogen, it's BIIB054, and it's a monoclonal antibody that targets alpha-synuclein. And hopefully they're going to try to show that they can slow down disease progression. It's gone through phase 1, so safety testing in normal humans has been done. There's been no serious problems with it, no toxicities. And so they did show that the level of alpha-synuclein was able to be decreased in these human subjects, even normal ones. So they're going to start recruiting for phase 2 soon. They've kind of been selecting sites, and so hopefully we'll be able to start next year. Or actually, they're hoping for the end of this year. This is another company, Roche, and they have come out with a very similar thing as well. It's called PRX002. It's another antibody targeting alpha-synuclein, came from mice. They've done similar to the Biogen one. They've completed their phase 1, and they've shown that it's safe, it's tolerable. And so they're going on to phase 2 as well, kind of neck and neck with Biogen. So it's a little bit of a competition right now to see who can get their thing done first and out onto the market. It's called the Pasadena trial, and so they're recruiting. And these are the 2 centers that are going to be recruiting, USC and then UCSF. Okay. This is a drug that's going back to treating the motor symptoms. Is a very, very long number name. But this is very similar to the drugs that you've heard about, like Mirapex, like Requip, like Nupro, things like that. This is a dopamine agonist, but it's targeting slightly more selective receptors. So hopefully they're thinking that this would be a little bit more effective and have less side effects than the previous drugs have been. This is a very interesting trial that I wanted to pull up because this is a new kind of way of doing clinical trials in Parkinson's disease, where they're going to have people hopefully wear sensors, watches, things that can detect movement, and they're going to upload all of this to giant supercomputers to kind of hopefully analyze the data and see if they can come up with a new way of tracking motor symptoms other than, you checking a box every half an hour saying, oh, I feel better, I feel on, I feel off, I'm dyskinetic, and things like that. So this is a new way of kind of using sensors, supercomputers, data, wearables to kind of help analyze all of this data that we're getting. Inosine, so urate, which actually causes gout, is actually an antioxidant in the system as well. And it was shown to be that it's neuroprotective in Parkinson's disease models in mice. So with that kind of logic, hopefully higher urate levels can be linked to a lower risk of developing Parkinson's disease and slow down its rate of progression. So inosine can raise urate levels. And so they're trying to test inosine in Parkinson's disease patients to see if they can slow down the disease or make the disease better. So right now it's in phase 3 trials. There's a bunch of centers around California and also around the United States as well. And that trial is called SURE-PD3. That's kind of using inosine to kind of help Parkinson's disease. And it's being funded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation and also the NIH. All right. This is another interesting one I wanted to talk briefly about. Probably not going to be available to the public in terms of being available and FDA approved for a while, but something worth kind of knowing about. It's gene therapy using adenovirus. So viruses have a unique capability of kind of entering cells and changing DNA. Or changing RNA, changing the codes of your system. So this virus will actually go into your brain cells on purpose after we kind of redesign them to restore production of proteins, restore potentially maybe production of dopamine, restore production of other things as well. And so they've developed what's called an adenovirus-associated type 2 human aromatic L-amino acid decarboxylase. And what this does is actually restores the function of an enzyme that converts your levodopa into your dopamine. So you ingest all this levodopa and it needs to be converted into the dopamine. And we think that over time, the problem is that you don't convert it over as well anymore. So you need to take more and more, it doesn't work as well, you get dyskinesias, et cetera, et cetera. And so hopefully this will kind of restore that kind of smooth functionality of that turnover. And so the phase 1 trials have been done, and it appears to be safe in Parkinson's disease patients. So hopefully they're going to be moving on to phase 2 trials soon. And this is something that's kind of a new way, instead of just medications, to kind of hopefully help Parkinson's disease patients. So this is just a brief overview of the phase 1 results. They showed PET scans, which is a scan looking at the activity of the brain, showed that they did increase, they did change the brain after even 4 years of doing this. So this, I mean, think about this, they've been already doing this for at least over 4 years already. The problem is that they have shown a little deterioration over the first 12 months, but still they did show improvement over 4 years. You can see this is a picture of the side of a monkey, that they did this procedure on, and they show that there's more, in this picture is more dye, that show that increased production of this AADC protein. And so they're kind of recruiting for trials now. I think they're looking for 16 patients to receive either low dose or high dose of this adenovirus vector. And I think they're recruiting at UCSF. I think that's where they're doing it. Yes, UCSF. Okay. Moving on, I wanted to briefly discuss in more advanced surgical trials. So deep brain stimulation is for moderate to advanced Parkinson's disease, and this is a trial for a new device made by Boston Scientific for a new DBS system. Medtronic, as you may know, is a system that is available out now, and then also Abbott, who came out last year with a DBS system. So this will be the third company to come out with a DBS system. It's called the Versailles system. The advantages are it's rechargeable and it has a few new programming capabilities. Actually, they're just about wrapping up the trial, and hopefully they're going to have positive results that they're going to release to the public hopefully next year. So as I said, it's a constant current system. There's like 8 contacts, which instead of the 4 that's available right now. It's rechargeable. They're kind of completing their phase 3 trials, and hopefully we're going to have results in the end of this year or perhaps next year. So these are the 3 companies that hopefully we'll have options for DBS for those of you who are thinking about DBS in the near future or in the far future. This one, I don't have a lot of information about, but it's for a non-motor symptom of Parkinson's disease. It's for Parkinson's disease dementia, which we don't have a lot of treatment options out there for. It affects serotonin, so a different chemical other than dopamine, and it could be effective in treating Parkinson's disease dementia because of the trials that have been kind of done already. So I looked, and the only place that was recruiting was San Diego, but they're not yet currently recruiting, although the trial's been open for a while. I don't know the exact reason, but the results are supposed to be out early next year, so maybe they're wrapping up already. This was very interesting. I wanted to put this up there. This is kind of a new twist. This is actually looking at Parkinson's disease constipation. So a lot of these chemicals we come up with, exenatide actually came from the Gila monster. It actually was isolated from Gila monster saliva. So this chemical is actually isolated from the spiny dogfish shark. It was shown to actually prevent buildup of alpha-synuclein in sharks, and actually also in the stomachs and the GI tracts of worms that were kind of made to look like Parkinson's, that were made to have Parkinson's disease. And so it locally stimulates the GI tract and prevents buildup of alpha-synuclein. Very interesting. And so they're going for very, very early trials, phase 1, phase 2 trials for treatment of Parkinson's disease-related constipation, and they're recruiting at USC. So I just wanted to put in some other trials that are not medication-based, but other things that are out there for Parkinson's disease for those of you that are interested. There are trials for palliative care at UCSF. There are trials looking at cognitive impairment, exercise, kind of multidisciplinary approaches to Parkinson's disease, and also wearable devices. So watches, bracelets, anklets that look at monitoring Parkinson's disease to kind of figure out a better way to kind of figure out how to grade symptoms. Okay. So one thing that I wanted to also bring up is cannabis. I get a lot of questions about cannabis, marijuana, THC, smoking, eating cannabis and things, cannabis oil. And so this is just a brief slide about cannabis. We know that cannabis can reduce oxidative damage, and it can enhance the antioxidant defenses in our body. It could be anti-inflammatory and reduce damage that's done by too much excitation or too much excitement or too much activation in our body. And so it was shown to potentially improve Parkinson's disease in animal models. So moving on to humans, I just pulled up a couple of different studies that they've done in humans. One of the largest studies that they've done in humans was a study done in Czechoslovakia of 339 patients. It's a very subjective study. Basically, patients just fill out a questionnaire. And this questionnaire looked at, did you use it, did you not use it? And then also, do you feel like it benefited you or not? And so 46% said that they felt like it did benefit them. But again, this is all kind of based on their own reports. And so small open label studies, so they actually witnessed people ingesting or smoking the cannabis, and 22 people showed that they did improve after 30 minutes. But it was a very small group. It was only 20 people, about 20 people. So they've tried to kind of move this on into more controlled trials, into kind of blinding. People don't know whether they're smoking the real thing or smoking the not thing, eating the real thing or not. Physicians won't know either. And it kind of has been kind of a wash. So some have shown benefit, some have not, some have shown some side effects, some people were not appropriately blinded, and people knew whether they were getting the real thing or not. So I think at this point it's too early to say whether or not it's a thing that was really going to help people. People who ask me, I always say, I can't really say yes or no, but if you are you willing to try it, I'd say give it a try, and if it helps you, great. But it's too early to draw big conclusions to kind of put a stamp on it and saying, yes, it's approved, yes, it works, or no, it doesn't. And there's one center in Colorado that is studying this cannabis on Parkinson's disease tremor. And the other question that I get a lot about is about stem cells. So I don't think stem cell therapy is going to be available for at least several years yet. But these are the trials I pulled that are available out, recruiting for stem cell trials worldwide. And the problems with stem cell therapy right now are multifold. So the problem is, where are we supposed to get these stem cells? Are we supposed to get these stem cells from you and fix these cells and then put them back into you? There's different kinds of stem cells. So there's embryonic stem cells, there's mesenchymal stem cells. And how do we get them into the brain? Do we inject them into the blood and hopefully let them find their way? Do we inject them into your brain directly using needles? Do we put them in using tubes? There's so many different options. So we haven't figured out what way is the best for that either. And then after that, how do the cells know what to do? How do they know to only go to the basal ganglia or the substantia nigra? How do they know they won't travel somewhere else and start producing dopamine somewhere else? How do they know to keep repairing? And then when they repair to an appropriate level, how do they know to stop repairing and not overgrow and turn into a tumor or something? And so these are a lot of safety concerns with stem cells as well, a lot of ethical issues with stem cells, and then we don't know how long these effects will last. So we don't want to do something to you and then only have it last a year or two and then you're back to square one again. So these trials take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of resources, and need a lot of monitoring, years of monitoring before we kind of finally come to any conclusions about whether they're not going to be effective or whether they're going to be effective or not. So it's going to be a while for stem cells, but those are some of the trials that are available on the market and some of the big issues that I get a lot of questions about that I wanted to bring up.